Morning, everybody. Welcome to day 2. We are going to continue our read aloud this morning. Remember, we are reading The Thief of Always with permission of HarperCollins Children's Books. Our learning target for today is I can determine who is the powerful character in the story by asking myself questions and looking for evidence of power. Okay, so we started our read aloud yesterday and we identified the genre, which is what you first always want to do. Then we met our main character and we talked about the setting. Okay, so basically we saw that he was very bored. It was February, it was dark, it was gloomy, he was in his bedroom, it was raining, and he said he was so bored that he needed something to do before he died. Then randomly his window blew open and a man entered his room. I believe that's where we left off. But basically we said that this was fantasy because we read the front cover and saw that there would be magic involved. Okay. And in order to talk about fantasy, we used this short story, The Paper Bag Princess. So we're going to look at it again for our learning target today. So like I said, we're determined which character in the story has power. By asking ourselves who has the power and how do we know? So maybe the character said something, maybe the character did something, or we saw their inner thinking. They thought a certain way that makes us think that they are the character that has the power. Okay, so we're going to first look at Paper Bag Princess real quick to see a little bit more about what I mean with who has the power. I'm just going to reread since it's so short the first 2 pages I did yesterday. It says, Elizabeth was a beautiful princess. She lived in a castle and had expensive princess clothes. She was going to marry a prince named Ronald. But unfortunately, a dragon smashed her castle, burned all her clothes with his fiery breath, and carried off Prince Ronald. Elizabeth decided to chase the dragon and get Ronald back. She looked everywhere for something to wear, but the only thing she could find that was not burnt was a paper bag. So she put on the paper bag and followed the dragon. He was easy to follow because he left a trail of burnt forests and horses' bones. So I'm just going to stop right there already. I feel like in this situation between Elizabeth and the dragon and Ronald, I already know who has the power. Okay, the dragon came, burned down her castle, took her prince. So through the dragon's actions, that makes me think that he has the power. And here we see Elizabeth chasing him. So here's what she's doing. I'm going to read a little bit more. It says, finally, Elizabeth came to a cave with a large door that had a huge knocker on it. She took hold of the knocker and banged on the door. The dragon stuck his nose out of the door and said, well, a princess. I love to eat princesses, but I've already eaten a whole castle today. I'm a very busy dragon. Come back tomorrow. He slammed the door so fast that Elizabeth almost got her nose caught. So again, by his actions, she has chased him and found him, and he's just like, I'm not talking to you today, goodbye, and slams the door. Okay, a little bit more. Elizabeth grabbed the knocker, banged on the door again. The dragon stuck his nose out of the door and said, go away. I love to eat princesses, but I've already eaten a whole castle today. I'm a very busy dragon. Come back tomorrow. Okay, so basically we see the dragon controlling Elizabeth. She's followed him. She has came to his humble abode. She wants to talk to him and he's just like, goodbye, I'm done, not talking to you today. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and continue on chapter 2 with our book, The Thief of Always. And chapter 2 is called The Hidden Way. So just like I did with the Paper Bag Princess, I want you, because fantasy readers ask about who has the power, we're going to ask ourselves, who has the power and how do we know? What does the character say, do, or think that makes me think that they have the power? Okay. We did a little review already of chapter 1. We met Harvey and Rickus. Here we go. Chapter 2. Harvey said nothing about his peculiar visitor to either his mom or his dad in case they put locks on the windows to stop Rickus returning to the house. But the trouble with keeping the visit a secret, was that after a few days, Harvey began to wonder if he'd imagined the whole thing. Perhaps he'd fallen asleep at the window, he thought, and Rickus had simply been a dream. He kept hoping, nevertheless. Watch for me, Rickus had said, and Harvey did just that. He watched from the window of his room. He watched from his desk at school. He even watched with one eye when he was laying on his pillow at night. But Rickus didn't show. And then, about a week after that first visit, just as Harvey's hope was waning, his watchfulness was rewarded. On his way to school one foggy morning, he heard a voice above his head and looked up to see Rickus floating down from the clouds. His coat swelled up around him so that he looked fatter than a prize pig. "How you doing?" he said as he descended. "Ha! I was starting to think I'd invented you," Harvey replied. "You know, like a dream." "Yeah, I get that a lot," Rickus said, his smile wider than ever. "Particularly from the ladies. You're a dream come true, they say." He winked. "And who am I to argue? Like my shoes?" Harvey looked down at Rickus's bright blue shoes. They were quite a sight, and he said so. "I got given 'em by my boss," Rickus said. "He's very happy you are going to come visit. So are you ready?" "Well, it's no use wasting time," Rickus said. "There may not be room for you tomorrow." "Can I just ask one question?" "But I thought we agreed." "I know, but just one." "All right, one." "Is this place far from here?" No, it's just across town." "So I'd only be missing a couple of hours of school?" "That's two questions," Rickus said. "No, I'm just thinking out loud." Rickus grunted. "Look," he said, "I'm not here to do a great song and dance persuading you. I got a friend called Jive that does that. I'm just a smiler. I smile and I say, 'Come with me to the holiday house.' And if folks don't want to come," he shrugged, "hey, it's their hard luck." With that, he turned his back on Harvey. Okay, so I'm going to stop there because remember, we are questioning ourselves as which character in this part of the story has the power. So I'm going to go back to the beginning of the chapter. We saw our main character, Harvey, sitting there waiting for Rickus because Rickus told him that he would be back. So Harvey's literally not sleeping because he's just waiting for his visit again. Okay, so that makes me think that through Rickus's words, that he's controlling what Harvey does. So that makes me think that Rickus is powerful. And then here, Harvey's like questioning Rickus, and Harvey's like, "Well, we said no more questions." So, and then in the final part, we see Rickus turn his back on Harvey. So that's a very controlling action of somebody. I'm going to continue. "Wait," Harvey protested. "I want to come, but just for a little while." "You can stay as long as you like," Rickus said, "or as little. All I want to do is take that glum expression off your face and put one of these up there." His grin grew even larger. "Is there any crime in that?" "No," said Harvey. "There's no crime. I'm glad you found me. I really am." So what if he missed all of the morning at school, he thought. It'd be no great loss, maybe an hour or two of the afternoon as well, as long as he was back home by 3 or 4, certainly before dark. "I'm ready to go," he said to Rickus. "Lead the way." Okay, so here we have even more evidence that Rickus is controlling because Harvey was unsure if he wanted to go on this little trip or adventure that Rickus said he's going to take him on. We still don't know where they're going. He said the holiday house. But we see that at this point, Harvey has changed his mind. Even though he's going to miss school, he's like, "All right, Rickus, I'm going to go with you." Okay. Millsap, the town in which Harvey had lived all his life, wasn't very big, and he thought he'd seen just about all of it over the years. But the streets he knew were soon behind them, and though Rickus was setting a fair speed, Harvey made sure he kept a mental list of landmarks along the way, in case he had to find his way home on his own. A butcher's shop with 2 pigs' heads hanging from hooks, a churchyard with a full of old tombs beside it, the statue of some dead general, covered from hat to stirrups in pigeon dung. All these sights and more he noted and filed away. And while they walked, Rickus kept up a stream of idle chatter. I hate the fog. I just hate it, he said. And there'll be rain by noon. We'll be out of it, of course. He went on from talk of rain to the state of the streets. Look at this trash all over the sidewalk. It's shameful. And the mud, it's making a fine old mess of my shoes. He had plenty more to say, but none of it was very enlightening. So after a while, Harvey gave up listening. How far was this holiday house? He began to wonder. The fog was chilling him, and his legs were aching. And if they didn't get there soon, he was going to turn back. I know what you're thinking, said Rictus. I bet you don't, said Harvey. You're thinking this is all a trick. You're thinking Rictus is leading you on a mystery tour, and there's nothing at the end of it. Isn't that true? Well, maybe a little. Well, my boy, I've got news for you. Look up ahead. He pointed, and there, not very far from where they stood, was a high wall which was so long that it disappeared into the fog to right and left. What do you see? Rictus asked him. A wall, Harvey replied, though the more he stared at it, the less certain of this he was. The stones, which had seemed solid enough at first sight, now looked to be shifting and wavering as though they'd been chiseled from the fog itself without prying eyes. It looks like a wall, Harvey said, but it's not a wall. You're very observant, Rictus replied admiringly. Most people just see a dead end, so they turn around and take another street. But not us. No, not us. We're going to keep on walking. You know why? Because the holiday house is on the other side. What a miraculous kid you are, Rictus replied. That is exactly right. Are you hungry, by the way? Starving. Well, there's a woman waiting for you in the house called Mrs. Griffin. And let me tell you, she's the greatest cook in all of America land. I swear on my tailor's grave, anything you can dream of eating, she can cook. All you have to do is ask. Her deviled eggs, he smacked his lips, perfection. I don't see a gate, Harvey said. That's because there isn't one. So how do we get in? Just keep walking. Half out of hunger, half out of curiosity, Harvey did as Rickus had instructed, and as he came within 3 steps of the wall, a gust of balmy, flower-scented wind slipped between the shimmering stones and kissed his cheek. Its warmth was welcome after his long, cold trek, and he picked up his pace, reaching out to touch the wall as he approached it. The misty stones seemed to reach for him in their turn, wrapping their soft gray arms around his shoulders and ushering him through the wall. So there we see a little bit of magic. He's just kind of walking through the wall. He looked back, but the street he'd stepped out of with its gray sidewalks and gray clouds had already disappeared. Beneath his feet, the grass was high and full of flowers. Above his head, the sky was midsummer blue, and ahead of him, set at the summit of a great slope, was a house that had surely been first imagined in a dream. He didn't wait to see if Rictus was coming after him, nor to wonder how the gray beast of February had been slain and this warm day risen in its place. He simply let out a laugh that Rictus would have been proud of and hurried up the slope and into the shadow of the dream house. Okay, so yesterday we talked about the setting, and here we see the setting has changed a lot. So he referred again to the beast of February and the gray streets, how once he walked through this wall, the gray streets behind him kind of disappeared. And now if you're the author's language here, they use really descriptive and sensory language. It talks about how the flower-scented wind, its warmth was welcome after his long, cold trek. Here it is. He stepped out, and its gray sidewalks and gray clouds had already disappeared. Beneath his feet, the grass was high and full of flowers. The sky was midsummer blue. Okay, so we see the setting change, and then we also, as the setting changes, see the character change. So at the very end, it says that wondered how the gray beast February had been slain and this warm day risen in its place. He simply let out a laugh that Rickus would have been proud of. So here we see Harvey laughing, whereas before he was like completely bored, wanting to die. You can almost say he was depressed. Okay, so again, our learning target for chapter 2 was to question ourselves, who is the character with the power in this part of the story? So we saw Rictus kind of guiding Harvey's every move. Harvey sitting there waiting on Rictus. Harvey wanting to ask questions, but Rictus demanding him, no, we made an agreement. There are no questions. And Rictus leading Harvey to this place we know now is called the Holiday House. Okay, so in your independent work today, you are going to continue reading whatever book you chose from Epic yesterday. Nobody should have finished the book because I think most of them are 100 plus pages. So just continue where you left off with yesterday. And as a reader of fantasy, as a fantasy reader, I want you to read today and I want you to question yourself, who has the power in this part of the story? Okay, and then I think today you will be doing your independent work on Padlet. So there's a link in the plans for you. And there's a couple questions that I have posted there for you. Basically the same questions that we answered together in Paper Bag Princess, which you saw first because it's a little simpler text. I use that to kind of open up the lesson. And then the Thief of Always, we saw Rictus controlling our main character, Harvey. Okay, so as you read today again, you're going to be asking yourself, who is the power, has the power, and how do you know? So what does the character say? What does the character do? And even maybe what does the character think? That shows you that they are a powerful character. Okay, that is all I have for us today. Remember that I will be available throughout the day. If you're working and you have any questions, you can send me a message on Classroom. Your parents can send me a message on Parent Square, email. If you have any questions about the work, hopefully the learning plan is working out for you. Again, if you have any questions or any issues or concerns, just let me know. Have a great day. I will see you tomorrow. Same time, same place. Miss you guys. Hope you're doing well.